Hello viewers, this is Uma. Welcome to my channel, and today we're going to talk about Carrie Nelson's murder case. Before I start with the video, I just want to say this video is only for educational purpose and all the information was found on the internet which I gathered into one. Let's begin with the video now. Carrie Nelson was born and raised in Rock County, Minnesota. She was in her late 20s and was described as a fun-loving, caring, and a lively person. She had lots of friends and was engaged to a man, had her whole life in front of her. When this murder happened, it pretty much shook the whole town because it was considered the small and safe community. Anything like this happened, it was like 3 decades ago, so it pretty much devastated the whole town. Carrie worked at Blue Mountain State Park in Rock County. In 2001 summer, like any other day, she left for her work and never returned home. An intern who also worked at Blue Mountain State Park walked in through the back door after her lunch break and found Carrie's dead body on the floor. She panicked and ran out of the room, dialed 911. The cops arrived at the crime scene and found Carrie's body in pool of blood. And the state of her uniform shirt suggested that she fought back her killer. The cops also found an incomplete note on her desk, which was a love note for her fiancé, which had time and date in it. They also found a watch and a certain brand cigarette box next to her on the floor. Her body was now sent for autopsy and found multiple blunt force trauma to her head, which was the cause of her death. Forensic team was brought in and they found over 100 different individual fingerprints. They first tested the DNA samples and fingerprints of the employees to see if they got any match, but everything came back negative. So now they know that it was someone from outside. They inquired the staff if there was anything unusual or if there is anything else missing from the crime scene. The staff said there was a decorative stone with a bull carving and a Blue Mountain State Park name on it was missing, along with a cash bag from safe which had about $2,000. The investigators believe the killer must have used a decorative stone as the weapon to hit Carrie on her head. Also, they weren't sure if it was just a robbery gone wrong case or if it had more to it. They investigated everyone, but they ended up with no leads. All they had was a man left the place in a white car in jet speed around the same time the crime occurred. They initially suspected Carrie's fiancé. Everyone they inquired said they got along fine and they were a really good couple. And then he had a strong alibi during the time of crime. So he was ruled out. Then they had an early lead that fit the suspect's profile. It was one of Carrie's friends who drives the same car as mentioned and had a history of drug issues. It was assumed that he must have done this for money or tried to drop where his friend worked. And also he had asked Carrie on a date which she turned down. So the cops searched his vehicle, both the one he had rented on the day and his personal vehicle that was in his garage, but they both came back with nothing. He was a main person of interest now, and his DNA was taken for the test to see if anything matched, but they came back negative. After the murder, the Blue Mountains were closed for a week, where the investigators were looking for any kind of clues or evidence. But after 5 days, an officer found the decorative stone that was missing from the office in a remote creek, and the medical examiner confirmed that it was the object that was used to kill Carrie, but there was no DNA or fingerprint on the rock. The test results from the watch showed 3 or more DNAs, and they were not accurate and they went back to square one. Without any new leads for 5 years, it just went by. By now, DNA analysts have advanced, so the investigators sent the watch to the forensic lab one more time for the test, and they got more accurate results this time around. One DNA was identified as Carrie Nelson, and the other 2 DNA was identified as specific individuals. So they ran both DNA on Minnesota database and found no match. And then they decided to run it through database of states close to Minnesota, and 2.5 weeks later they hear from South Dakota that they have a match. One of the samples was a match to a man named Randy Sweeney, and also found his palm prints in the crime scene on the papers and the tables close to where the body was found. The other DNA was identified as his wife's. Even with the DNA identified, the case was far from solved, but cops needed more evidence now to see and confirm if it was Randy. The cops now ran a background check on Randy and found a long history of criminal records. During the murder of Carrie Nelson, he was out of prison, which made it more evident, and now to cops like he was serving a few months in South Dakota prison. He was a burglar and a gambler, always in and out of prison kind of guy. As the cops were investigating about Randy, they realized that their clock was ticking because he was due to be released from prison in a month. So they had to collect as much evidence as possible before he got out. They decided to interview his wife. She was cooperative and answered everything the investigators wanted to know. She was shown pictures of the watch that was found at the crime scene, and immediately she said that's Randy's watch. She also mentioned that on occasion she would wear his watch, which explained why her DNA was found on it. Now the detectives explained to Randy's wife why she's being questioned and where they found the watch. She also said he owned a white color car during that time, and he smoked the same brand cigarette that was found at the crime scene. Now the investigators are certain that the Randy is the killer, and it was time for them to visit Randy in the prison. As soon as Randy hears who the investigators are, he gets really nervous, and he immediately says he needs a lawyer if he has to answer any of the questions. So the investigators couldn't really proceed with it. But the following day, Randy Sweeney calls his wife from prison, where his wife tries to learn the truth about the incident or anything about it, but he just kept denying to all of it. And after the phone call with his wife, she gave several photographs to the investigators in which he was wearing the same watch and smoked the same brand cigarette found at the crime scene. Even the clasp of the watch was in the fourth hole. The watch found at the crime scene also had a fourth hole. Now it was more than a proof, like they thought they had enough proof to accuse Randy of this murder. And Carrie's family was notified about everything, and they were happy and grateful they finally found the guy. On May 8, 2007, 6 years after Carrie Nelson's death, murder charges were filed against Randy Sweeney exactly a day before his release from prison. It was the first murder trial in Rock County in 3 decades. Randy did not plead guilty. The trial lasted for like 2 weeks, and the jury sentenced him for life in prison without the possibility of parole. During trial, he showed no emotion whatsoever. Randy proclaimed innocence till the end. That's all for today's case, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comment, and I will see you guys in my next video.